Welcome back to the M. Graham swatching series in which we swatch every single color from M. Graham. This is episode 6 and these are the 5 colors we're going to look at in this video. We have the Cobalt Violet, Ultramarine Violet Deep, Dioxazine Purple, Ultramarine Violet and Ultramarine Blue. So let's get started from the Cobalt Violet. Here we have the Cobalt Violet, and I'm going to bring in 2 more colors. One is the Mineral Violet from the previous episode, episode 5, and also the Ultramarine Violet Deep. And I'm bringing these in because these are very similar colors, and I feel like you probably only need one of these. And I want to talk more about how to pick between these 3 as well. The Cobalt Violet, which is the middle one, is made with PV14, whereas the Ultramarine Violet Deep is PV15 and Mineral Violet is a mixture of PV16 and PV15. The first impression you get is that these 2 have more granulation and this one is a much finer granulation. There's definitely granulation, but not as much. You can see here that you get huge amounts of granulation. In the Cobalt Violet, you actually do get granulation in the master, which is very nice. So if you want stronger granulation, probably go for the Mineral Violet or the Cobalt Violet. In terms of hue though, the Cobalt Violet and Ultramarine Violet Deep are closer in hue than the Mineral Violet. Mineral Violet is a more red violet, whereas these 2 are a little bit more blue violet. I wouldn't call these blue violet colors. They're still definitely in the red violet hue range, but compared to the Mineral Violet, these are a little bit cooler, and these 2 are very similar, so you probably won't need both Cobalt Violet and Ultramarine Violet Deep. If it comes down to between these 2 colors, then I would pick depending on how much granulation you want rather than the hue. In terms of doing the gradations, on the heavily granulating colors, the Mineral Violet and the Cobalt Violet, you get no cauliflowering because they're such heavy granulating colors, whereas with the Ultramarine Violet Deep you do get a little bit of cauliflowering, but it's such a small amount that, as I always say, I put way more water than any sane person would on these gradations so that we can test them at its worst. So if at those circumstances it only does a little bit of cauliflowering, you're probably not going to get cauliflowering under normal painting circumstances. In terms of opacity, the Cobalt Violet is the most transparent. I barely see any deposits here, and it's classified as semi-transparent, which I would agree with. I see a tiny bit, but it's pretty close to transparent. But because you can see a little bit of deposit, yeah, semi-transparent. Whereas I would say the Mineral Violet is the most opaque, and it's also classified as semi-opaque, which I would say it's pretty opaque. That's a lot of deposit on that black line. And then the Ultramarine Violet Deep is actually classified as transparent, but there's no way this is transparent. I see plenty of deposits. It's at least a semi-opaque paint. So you can choose between these 3 colors depending on how much transparency you want as well. In terms of staining, these 2 are non-staining. They pretty much come up back to white paper, whereas the Mineral Violet is semi-staining, so that might be something you want to look out for. In terms of glazing, there's not much difference between the 3. They're all pretty bad. They lift easily, they're granulating, some of them are opaque, so you're never going to get a clear glazing out of these, so there's not much between these. In terms of color mixes, all 3 colors are low in tinting strengths, but the Ultramarine Violet Deep in particular is very low tinting strength compared to these 2. However, they are all low tinting strength anyway. In terms of color mixes, the Mineral Violet shows up the most, certainly in terms of mixing with these 3 colors. The granulation shows up the best. With the Cobalt Violet, it's much finer down here with the Iridium and the Quin Rose, but you do get some good granulations in the Phthalo Blue yellow shade. in the Ultramarine Violet Deep, you get barely any granulation. It is there if you look at it close up. Check out high-res scans of these on my patreon.com/Oto Kano. You do need to be up close and look at things like high-res to really see the granulation, whereas the granulation around here are very obvious. So that is something you can definitely choose if you want lots of granulation showing. Maybe you're wanting that dual tone look, or one color and the other like you would get with the super granulating colors from Schmincke, then I would say the Mineral Violet is your best bet because it shows up a lot in all three of the colors tested here. So that's the three colors here. Let's take Mineral Violet away. With the Cobalt Violet, it is PV14, which is obviously the Cobalt Violet, and the Ultramarine Violet Deep is PV15, which is the Ultramarine Violet. Moving on to the Dioxazine Purple. This is much more intense in everything, I would say. It's a very deep, I would say a little bit bluish purple, and it's very high in tinting strength. It's just very powerful color. So if you have a lot of those lower tinting strength colors, then you might have to think a little bit more carefully when you're mixing it. The thing I am most impressed about with this Dioxazine Purple is this. As I told you already that I use excess amount of water, and Dioxazine Purple is very prone to cauliflowering. However, look, no cauliflowering. I think that's amazing. So if you've had a problem with other Dioxazine Purple, with cauliflowering, with water control, and you're just so sick of it and you want to change things up, then I highly recommend the M gram one. If it doesn't cauliflower on this test, unless you're doing some pouring buckets of water kind of art, it's not going to cauliflower on you. If you are not confident yet with your water control again, pick this one over the other Dioxazine Purple because it's so good at not cauliflowering. In terms of transparency, it is classified as transparent. I would agree with that. It's classified as staining. Again, I would agree with that. It's very staining. So just be careful where you put it down because you're not going to get it back up. In terms of glazing, it does come up, or the paint will re-wet very quickly, so you do get the lighter border around the outline. But because it's a transparent color, if you can get your paint down in one go without doing the outline, you'll probably get really good effect of glazing where you can see the layers. Just be sure to do it very quickly and don't go over where it's already wet. In terms of color mixes, it's very high in tinting strength, so you get nice strong colors happening here. The Aurelian is almost a complementary color, and you get this yellow browny color. With the Queen Rose, it intensifies it into like a deep magenta purpley color, and then with the Phthalo Blue yellow shade, it turns it into a nice blue color. It is made with PV23, which is the Dioxazine Violet. And then we have the Ultramarine Violet, and the gradation on this is beautiful. It is a very blue violet. Some Ultramarine Violets are very pink. This one is nice and blue. So that's just something to look out for when you are picking between brands if you're looking for Ultramarine Violet. There's fewer brands that do bluey violet. Schmincke is one of them, rather than a pinky Ultramarine Violet. It has lovely granulation all the way through, pretty much till here where it's almost water. You get nice granulation in the mass tone as well. In terms of transparency, it is classified as transparent. I would disagree with that. It's definitely a semi-opaque. There's a lot of deposits on that black line. It is classified as non-staining. I would say somewhere between non-staining and semi-staining. It's not bad, but there's definitely still some paint left on the paper. In terms of glazing, not great. It's a granulating color, it lifts easily, so the layers are very blurred and the paint's going to lift pretty quickly. In terms of color mixes, you get nice granulation showing through on all three colors, which is nice, but it's not as intense a color as, say, the Ultramarine Blue that we're going to see next. It is made with PB29 and PB15, which is a mixture of Ultramarine Blue and Ultramarine Violet. And finally, for this video, we have the Ultramarine Blue, which is made with PB29, which we all know is Ultramarine Blue. It's a nice intense blue, and you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages. It's one of the few colors that we do get 5 stages in M gram. We do get the dark edges happening again, though. You see here where the stages change. The beginning of the stage is much lighter than where there is a change in the amount of water that's on there. So that is something to definitely look out for and just be mindful of if you want to do granulation with this color, but you won't get any cauliflowering. So the only thing you have to worry about is the dark edge issue. In terms of transparency, it is classified as transparent. I would say semi-transparent. I do see deposits here on the black line. It's classified as non-staining, and it's definitely semi-staining. It's more staining than the Ultramarine Violet that we just had. And it's terrible at doing the glazing, but most Ultramarine Blues are terrible at glazing. So if you're going to glaze with this, just be quick about it. And don't go over an area that you've gone over already and it's still wet. In terms of color mixes, it's a little bit more intense than the Ultramarine Violet. Let's just bring the two together. So you see that it's a little bit more intense in its tinting strength. And so you can get much stronger greens and purples and blues. So that's probably how you want to decide between the Ultramarine Blue and the Ultramarine Violet, is how intense a tinting strengths you are wanting from your color mixes. If you'd like to try these lovely colors that we're covering this month in the M gram swatching series, then you can do that without having to buy whole tubes. This month's Patreon exclusive dot card is the second M gram card, and it covers the reds and violets that we're taking a look at this month. It has Queen Red, Pyro Red, Cadmium Red Deep, Queen Rose, Alizarin Crimson, Maroon Perylene, Mineral Violet and Cobalt Violet. I think these are the best reds and pinks and violets of M gram. If you'd like to receive this, then all you have to do is head on over to patreon.com/Oto Kano today and sign up to the appropriate tiers, and this dot card will be on its way to you. That's it for this episode. What did you think of these colors? Do let me know which one was your favorite in the comments down below. For me, I think the Dioxazine Purple is the highlight of this episode because it is so good at not cauliflowering. So if you want to do a lot of watery stuff with the Dioxazine Purple, an intense purple, but you don't want the cauliflowering, then this I would highly recommend. Another thing is that the Ultramarine Violet that M gram has is on the bluer side. I know that in my color wheel palettes, there's very limited number of Ultramarine Violets that can fulfill the blue violet well. And my choice is Schmincke, but I'm pretty sure that you can use M gram's Ultramarine Violet as well and get the same results. So if you can't get the Schmincke, try the M gram one instead. The Cobalt Violet is included in this month's dot card, and the Ultramarine Blue will be in the next month's dot card. So do check that out and sign up over on patreon.com/Oto Kano if you want to try out these two colors at home. That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you fancy buying any of these colors, links down below to Blick, Amazon US and Jackson's, so that you can easily find where to buy them. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you for M gram for supplying some of these colors, and I will speak to you in the next episode. Bye.